Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another video with Swaggle. Well, there it was, San Diego Comic-Con, another great show, another great year. I had a ton of fun at the show, got to have a lot of great conversations, got to do some comic book panels, got to bring my own comic book there, do some signings, engage with a ton of people in the community, and I got to pick up a handful of comic books here that, of course, I want to share with you guys here today. I'm actually going to cheat a little bit because I have one book here that I got at Terrificon, but I wanted to include it in the conversation of other comics that I got. And then later on in the video, just give you guys my general thoughts on the show, my feeling, kind of give my thoughts on what the comic book market was doing. Later on this week, I will definitely have my Talk to Dealers video so you can get their takes on the state of the market as well. And I think that that is going to be a good one, as it usually is, getting to listen to a lot of those comic book dealers. But in this video, let me show you guys some of the books and I will give you my own thoughts. But of course, before I get into it, if you guys drop me a like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying the content, helps support the channel, doing those things, I appreciate it. But let's get into this video here today. Now, I'm going to go through some of the books. I wasn't able to get as many books as I would have hoped to have been able to get because I didn't have as much free time to dig around like I usually do. Like I said, I had some signings to do. I did 3 different panels. Shout out to Jeff from Into the Void Comics for having me on his panels. Shout out to Efrain from Past Point Comics for also having me on his panel. A lot of fun, a full room actually in a couple of the panels that I did. And I will get into that a little bit later on because, no Hall H, no Hollywood. So people were actually looking at the smaller panels. But let's talk about the books right here. It was Sunday afternoon. It was the end of the show. I was feeling like I was going to come home empty-handed, and I just happened to stray into the Bunky Brothers booth. And when I picked up this book, I saw that it had a pretty competitive price on it. And Bob, one of the guys working there, was like, "Oh, I'll give it to you for $100." And when he said that, I was like, "I'm going to take this all day." So the first book I was able to pick up for myself is Tales of Suspense, number 57, first appearance of the character Hawkeye right there. A very, very low grade. They had this one actually marked at a 1.0, but I think that they're being a little bit harsh. I mean, I think that this could be a 1.5. Bottom staple is detached, but the book is complete. Everything is there. And yeah, I mean, there's a little bit of writing on the cover. I mean, certainly, not in the best shape, but for $100, I thought that this was a no-brainer pickup in my opinion. In fact, once he said that this book he was going to give it to me for $100, which they had it listed at $200. I was like, okay, well, let me see what else I can pick up. If you guys have kind of this, it's Sunday, I don't want to take any books home policy. So I was digging around and I was able to pick up some other stuff. But let me finish out with this one right here. I feel like now, and I've said this in previous videos, I feel like now is such an excellent time to pick up a lot of these, second tier first appearance types of books. I mean, when we're talking about, 1964 first appearances to 1966, first appearance of Vision, or, in this case, first appearance of Hawkeye or Wonder Man, or characters like that are on the secondary level, I think now is a perfect time. And I look at a character like Hawkeye in this particular book. I know Hawkeye is kind of the meme of the Avengers, but I think that he's still pretty cool. And when I think about books like this, to me, it's really more about the downside risk. I mean, I hear a lot of people talking out there how, oh, Hawkeye is done and we're never going to see him again and the book is dead, therefore you should not buy it. But to me, that's an indication that now is probably a great time to buy it. The fact that the movies are not going to have any more influence on this character, yet the floor prices are basically where they are, which to me is an indication that the downside risk at this point for picking up a book like this is about as small as it could possibly be. I mean, again, there's always risks with comic books. Everything can continue to go down in value. But generally speaking, where the book sits today, if you're somebody who wants to pick it up, I mean, how much lower could it really go? It's already so low as it is. And you have a lot of upside if, this book ever gets hot at some point in the future. So to me, it felt like a good opportunity to pick up a Tales of Suspense 57, first appearance of Hawkeye. I still love this book. I still think he is a very cool character, but I may be in the minority when it comes to that. Now, this next book I was able to pick up was also one that I got from Bunky Brothers when I was in their booth, and he gave me the deal he did. I was looking at this book right here that he had on the wall, and I was like, okay, that might be another good opportunity as well. So I decided to pick this one up, and he, once again, gave me basically 50% off on this book. But this book I got is fantastic for number 52, first appearance of Black Panther. Of course, this was a book that I included in my trade where I got scammed, so it's nice to have this one back in the collection. Now this right here, he had marked at like a 2.5 to a 3.0. You guys can see, I mean, the book presents beautifully. The cover is excellent, but it's just got the rat shoe up there. So he was able to give this one to me for $150. 2.5, 3.0, rat shoe or not, for $150. Again, I will take this book all day, every day. And again, another book that I feel like is, kind of underrated right now, undervalued. I think that now is a great time, once again, to pick this up. I mean, a lot of people always talk about like, oh, it was a mistake that they didn't include T'Challa in the last Wakanda Forever movie. And again, this character right now is about as far as they can be significant to pop culture. And for that reason, again, to me, it's all about the downside risk. I mean, how much more low could this book go? I mean, if we're following our comic book index, we know that there is always the potential for books to go lower. I mean, nothing is guaranteed, but at the same time, when we're thinking about, oh, should I buy a bunch of the DC books now that have a lot of hype and eyeballs on it? To me, I look at some of these books and I think to myself, hey, if you ever wanted a Black Panther book, now is as good a time to buy as any. All right, this other book I'm going to include in the conversation right here is a book that I was actually able to get at Terrificon, and I wanted to include it because, again, this is another book I feel very similar about FF52 and Tales of Suspense 57, but the book I was able to get for myself is Tales of Suspense number 52, first appearance of Black Widow. This one also is a lower grade, probably a 2.0. It's missing, some of the back corner in the back, so it's probably going to get a hit for that. But, the colors on this one present fantastic. The guy at Terrificon had it marked for $300. He gave it to me for $260, which again, I thought was a great deal, especially for it being, in that sort of 2.0 range. I feel like, again, what is the downside risk at that point? And Black Widow, another character who is done in the MCU, never to be seen again. We're going to see Scarlett Johansson again at some point in the MCU. Not that the movies have so much of an effect on the values. I've, of course, talked about this in my comic book indexes before. I think everything is going, our high tide raises all ships. I think when we are in better economic times in the macro environment, I think that's going to inflate all the prices of all of the books. But I was happy to pick this one up. I kind of feel like when you have Hawkeye on the wall right there, you also need Black Widow next to him. So it was always a little thing. I always had my eye out for a Tales of Suspense 52 if one came along at the right price. Okay, so those were sort of the coolest books I got, some of the bigger ones. This one right here was also just sort of a random book that I picked up for myself. Uncanny X-Men number 130, first appearance of Dazzler. Was able to get this one for $60. I just happened to see this one being sold at a pretty good price. Shout out to John for hooking me up with it. And again, another sort of X-Men character that I've talked about on the channel many times before. I feel like Dazzler is prime to be, a Disney Marvel character that they could, have album spin-offs for. I mean, think about how much music tie-ins Disney likes to do with all their characters. Dazzler feels like a no-brainer character for them to bring into the X-Men universe when they eventually do X-Men movies and shows. All right, next two books are a little bit of a shameless plug right here, but I was in San Diego Comic-Con and I was able to get my own comic book signed by the cover artist Sean Chen right there. This is my cover B for Sanity, the comic book that I wrote. Sean had actually done the cover, and I had him sign his name and do a little remark of a Bobo character because he himself had an ash can at the show that this is going to be his new comic book series, Genesis. So shout out to him and congratulations on rolling out his project. Actually, another shameless plug, I'm going to be helping with some of the writing duties for that book later on. So, kind of an exciting thing. Another one I got right here, cover C of my own book, signed by Pascal Campion, the artist who did this particular cover. So they were in San Diego. It felt like I had to get my own book signed. I mean, when in Rome, right? All right, and the last two books I have to share with you guys are ones that were actually gifted to me. And I think that these will kind of create interesting conversations that I wanted to kind of, go into the next part of the video and talking about the show. But this one right here is Save Now number 2 by Bad Idea. Of course, you guys know Dinesh Shamdashani. I had him on my Swagglecast podcast, but his publishing company, Bad Idea, gave this book out at the after party that they had for San Diego. And this is actually one that showed up on one of the recent hot lists. So this was kind of an interesting one. And again, it kind of wraps into this whole, Comic-Con exclusives, San Diego Comic-Con exclusives. This was one of the books that got really, really hot. It's written by Matt Kent. So I'm interested to actually get a chance to read it and check it out. And this other book was given to me by Vinny Kumar, shout out to him. But this is the one that has been causing a lot of interesting conversation and not controversy. I'm not ready to call it controversy yet, but kind of what I was talking about with some of my predictions going into San Diego. I actually was able to get the Musk versus Zuck book. Of course, you guys know Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg being talked about doing a UFC fight right here. And this is actually a book that was done by AI, by a guy named Television right here. The company that made this is Blank Canvas. And this one is an interesting one because, again, AI cover, we've been having conversations about AI. And there was actually a little bit of a story of one of the artists in Artist Alley in San Diego was actually apparently kicked out of her booth for selling AI work. Now, I can't say that that is actually verified. I don't know if that's just hearsay and rumors. In my opinion, no matter what you feel about AI, it is kind of weird that she would be kicked out for having AI work. Because again, is there anything illegal with selling AI work? I mean, I don't actually know. If she paid for the booth and she's an AI artist or whatever the case, like what is actually the problem with that? So kind of an interesting story. I might have to do a little bit of a deeper dive into that at some point later on. But this is a book right now that is really blowing up on the secondary market. I mean, I got to be honest, this was given to me and I'm tempted to sell my copy. I mean, for what this is selling for, I think that, prices are in the $250 to $300 range. They say that it was limited to 100. And it's crazy to see that, these Comic-Con exclusives can have such an effect on the secondary market due to like the hype and the FOMO and the stuff that surrounds it. And this is one of those books that has a lot of hype right now. Obviously, it's a really funny idea, and it kind of takes me back to some of the Mad Magazine sort of parody covers that they would do when they were like making fun of pop culture. And so this one is kind of an interesting book, and interesting to see that it was done by AI work. Now, Vinny did tell me a little bit about it, that it's not sort of like a click and output is this AI sort of comic book. There actually is a story inside there. I believe this Television artist is somebody who is using AI to, in the best applications of it, trying to use it more as a tool. There's still a lot of craft and technique that goes into it. I was actually able to flip through the book. I mean, it actually really is a comic book, even if it was written by AI. But that was my comic book haul. Let me take a few moments here to sort of just wrap up my overall experience at San Diego Comic-Con. Obviously, the big story going into the con was the fact that, there's the SAG strike, there's the writer's strike. There was going to be no Hollywood presence at the Comic-Con. They canceled the Marvel Hall H panel, which of course creates a lot of hype, a lot of buzz. And I think a lot of people's takeaways from this was that it actually made the Comic-Con better. And I don't know if I disagree with that statement. I mean, walking on the show floor, whether this is good or bad, it was like sardines out there. I mean, everybody was on the show floor at the con. Everybody was walking around. Everybody was more invested in the booths, more invested in the small panels like the one that I had with Into the Void Comics. People were actually attending those things. People had interest in that stuff. And that made it a better experience, I think, for a lot of the people that were just going there to enjoy the con experience. In fact, one of the dealers I was talking about, which you'll see in my dealer video, I was sort of asking him the question, like, okay, what are some of the hot books? What were people looking to buy? And their point of view on it was that people were really interested in picking up books that had artists doing signings, which to me is sort of an indication that it was less about, okay, Kang the Conqueror is announced, now I got to go get the Kang book. And it was more about, hey, Todd McFarlane is doing a signing, or such and such artist is doing a signing. I really want to get a book, have the experience, go over to their booth and have them sign it for me. And that was kind of something that was interesting, is that, the Comic-Con experience was more about the comic books themselves. So kind of a funny feeling at this particular Comic-Con. And I feel like it'll be interesting to see if this is something that Comic-Con as a organization sort of learns from this and thinks to themselves, hey, maybe it's less about having this be, some PR let's just hype up the latest big movie. And that's what the experience of Comic-Con is. And it's more going to be about like, okay, how do we just have more activations, more, experiences with people? How do we have more focus on comic books? And, I think that they're already doing that, because the panel that I was on that was talking about comic book collecting was very, very highly encouraged by San Diego itself. One of the reasons why they really wanted us to do the panel twice, actually, both on Friday and Sunday, was because of the fact that they're like, hey, we're San Diego Comic-Con, we got to have panels about collecting comic books. So they were really, encouraging of us, doing the panel that we actually did. So it was a very, very good show, a very interesting experience. Prices were definitely high, definitely really high. And I thought this was kind of an interesting experience story. I had a friend who was at the show who bought an Avengers #1 in like a 2.0 or 2.5 grade. And the sticker price that the dealer had on the wall was around, I think, $3,400 or something like that. And before he could even engage with the guy was like, hey, look, I'll take $2,400. So off the bat, he was willing to come $1,000 off of his sticker price in going into the conversation about it. And then my friend actually showed GPA, the last sale, at like whatever it was, 2,200, and then they end up agreeing at like 23 or something like that. So this was kind of an interesting thing, and I think that is kind of an evolution of where the sort of the comic market is, and like the prices, and 2021 prices and wall books and things like that. I feel like dealers have high stickers on books. They're willing to hear and take offers, but at the same time, they're not necessarily willing to change the sticker just yet, because if they have an uneducated comic book buyer come up to their booth, see the Avengers one and say, hey, $3,400, sure, I'll take it. Then they're obviously going to happily take that purchase, even though they were technically willing to let it go for $1,100 less at $2,300. So that's kind of where we are right now. I think now in comic books more than ever, this is probably the most important time to be very educated, be very versed on the current fair market values for comic books, because there's a lot of old stickers on books. There's a lot of old prices, really high premiums on things, but a lot of dealers and a lot of comic book sellers are willing to entertain offers and willing to take some of those, lower prices, even if they're also willing to just take the person who's willing to buy the sticker price on the book right then and there. So kind of an interesting thing. I think that would be my suggestion to you guys, is that it feels like it's still going to be a while. We're still going to see those 2021 sticker prices, but you really have to engage with dealers. You really have to have those conversations and negotiate on some of the values, which again, for a lot of people, and I understand this, like, I don't want to have to go up to a dealer and make a 50% off offer on a book. Because depending on who it is, it's going to be sort of insulting to them, so it's this very, very delicate balance that you have to do. I always suggest to people, just say, like, ask a dealer if they have room on a book. And I think you can kind of let them dictate the price back to you. But yeah, you got to be really, really educated right now in this current comic book market if you want to make sure that you're getting the right price on a lot of books. But again, San Diego Comic-Con, not necessarily the con you do shopping at, but definitely the con that you have a great sort of community experience. You get to interact with a lot of people. You get to have great conversations. And in my particular case, I got to kind of realize a dream, bring my comic book to the show. Big shout out to Shortboxed for hosting me. Big shout out to DCD Collects for hosting me as well. It was an awesome experience bringing my book to San Diego Comic-Con. And thank you to everybody who purchased the book or asked for my signature on one. I think a handful of people dropped the books off at CGC. So those people are actually going to have a signed slab of my comic book before I actually have one. I haven't even sent any books to CGC. So that'll be cool to see when they actually get it back from the grading company. Well, that is really all I have for this video. That was kind of my experience at San Diego Comic-Con. Later on this week, I might do a video talking about my experience at Terrificon, which was also a lot of fun, very, very interesting, and very, very different shows from like the tone, the feel, the prices of comic books, things like that. So stay tuned for that one. I will be putting out my dealer video probably on Thursday or so. Tomorrow, if I get things going, I will have my index report for the month of July. So that is something for us to look out for to see where current comic book prices are. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Those were my comic books. Happy to have picked up first Hawkeye, first Black Panther, first Black Widow. The big books right here, you know, those 1964 books, you know, those B tier first appearances. I think now is definitely the time to pick them up. Anyways, that's all I got for this video. Like, comment, subscribe. See y'all in the next one.